Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cybersecurity and Cloud podcast. This is your host, Francesco, and I'm so glad you're here with me to celebrate episode 40 of the second season. And the second season is almost over. We are planning a very special event with 3, not 4 podcasts all in one go, all in live, to actually close the season live, and then you'll have the episode, of course, available on iTunes, Spotify, and all the platform where we're on. But today's is the second part of an episode that I share with a fellow podcaster and a fellow community holder, Eddie Jaude, that right now reached 1,800 subscribers and is being a GitHub star for 2020, and is a passionate DevRel. And the conversation is so nice when you speak with another podcaster, because we geek out on audio, on video, and on all the things podcasting, but most important on how we relate to the community and how to effectively bring the community together. And we share a little bit of thoughts on how cyber and security works with developers, and how do we see the two things working and collaborating together, because we're coming from a very different world. So Eddie is a developer by trade, and I'm a cybersecurity by trade, and we try to come together and see what are the things that work and don't work in the various communities. So I had so much fun on recording this second episode. Is Security versus Developer, episode 2, The Revenge of the Dev. I hope you really enjoy it. This is your host, Francesco. Stay safe, stay secure, and be cyber safe. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Cybersecurity and Cloud Podcast, where we hear the stories of information security professionals. This podcast explores different angles, out-of-the-box ideas, and the human element of cybersecurity. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcast and supporting us at www.patreon.com/CSCP so we can continue to bring on amazing guests. You can watch videos of the interviews at www.cybercloudpodcast.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cybersecurity and Cloud podcast. I hope you guys are enjoying your time. I hope you had like a nice break. Now you're ready to kick on. And today we have the absolute pleasure to have Eddie Jaoude with us again. Hey, Eddie.
Hi, everyone. How you doing?
So Eddie came back from the first episode where we did security versus dev. And today we want to continue that conversation, because it was a great conversation. And we want to explore a little bit more on effectively what are the typical challenge back of security development, and how do we clash, and how do we get together and get better. But also explore a little bit on how developer and security people can get better at things with hackathons or CTFs, and see if there are commonalities and if we can find a way in between. But before I kick off, let me give a big welcome to Eddie Jaude, and is a massive open source supporter. He's built a massive and very active community. But Eddie, tell us everything about you.
Thank you so much for that amazing intro, and thank you so much for having me here. It's great to be here again and geek out with you. Yeah, it's been busy since the last time we spoke. The community has grown by magnitudes, and we've got loads more mods now, and just everyone's really collaborating together. I just wake up every day with more and more GitHub notifications. And this is not from me watching projects. It's actually from me being involved in the conversations. I think every day I must wake up to 300-400 plus notifications.
Wow.
A lot of them have been taken care of. So when the time I get to them, the pull request has been reviewed and it's merged, but it's good for me to be aware of what's going on. So I do need to spend, 30 seconds having a quick flick through about it and see if anyone needs any help. So I do go through them fairly quickly, but it's just scary when you get these sort of big numbers. And my LinkedIn and my Twitter must end up with 50 plus notifications every morning when I wake up as well. And it's a lot to go
but
through.
Scary.
It is quite scary. And people have suggested, farm it out, get a VA. And it's like, no, I want to do this myself, because I feel it's important, especially for that, to do the to do the personal touch. So I'm really keen to continue doing that. I enjoy it. I enjoy geeking out with people. And then in our Discord has grown massive. I mean, I think when did we chat last? When was it?
I think it was back in probably mid 2020.
Okay, interesting. So yes, that's quite a while ago. So I think in about September-ish, I created a Discord because people wanted to chat between YouTube and live streams and videos and GitHub pull requests and all the rest. And so I created a Discord, and before Christmas, I think I had like 300-400 people. I put a bot to encourage inclusive.
I saw that on Twitter.
Yeah. To be inclusive. So if people say in Discord, "Hey guys," it would reply and say, maybe you mean "Hey folks," "Hey everyone," and to be inclusive. And I think I lost like, I don't know, 50 to 100 people when that bot came on. It didn't kick them or ban them or anything. It just prompted them. And people got annoyed and said, "Hey, I'm leaving." I'm like, "Okay, fine. See you later. I'm not looking at the vanity metrics. I want this to be a safe space for everybody." But then January came and everyone started finding out we have a really inclusive, safe space where everyone's a mentor. Literally, everyone's a mentor. If you're 1 month into your career, then there is somebody who is where they were 1 month ago. And we really foster that. And from that, it's exploded. So now I think we're 1,400 already, just in a few weeks. It's like jumped up by 1,000. It's gone massive. So yeah, it's all really good going from strength to strength. And I just wish there were more hours in the day.
Yeah, I think there's a common problem of everybody trying to clone themselves and multiply. It's challenging.
Yeah, I need to add more people to my team. I'm creating more videos. My awesome video editor, Alona, is just got so many videos. I'm actually uploading like 100 gig video file for her at the moment as well. And it's just, I've got so many videos to go out. I actually only put out about 30 to 40% of the content that I generate, because I've gone in more into the documentation phase rather than the content creation phase. And so I'm actually only putting out 30-40% of pictures, of videos, of blogs.
I think it's important, especially in this period. I don't know if for you, but I am more and more on video, because I think and I must be, I'm an ex-architect, so I write a lot and I've write a lot of documentation, but I think you miss the personal touch, especially if you're really connected to a project. You can really infuse and communicate the energy of the project and give energy to people, and we were chatting before about that, but you can't communicate that with a document or an email. So I think I love the fact that you put the video out there, because it really shows the passion. And honestly, we're all human, so we're all driven by emotions.
Exactly right. You can write the words in one way or multiple ways, but when you hear someone say it, it's very different. They might say, "And today we're going to do open source," and you think, but they say, "Today we're going to do open source." It's like, yes, I want to do it. Like, what's going to happen? Exactly right. And I think that's really important, especially in the current times when in this crazy situation. Yes. I think people welcome that more. So I've actually started doing, like, on Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn and even Facebook Messenger, not doing text messages. I'm actually leaving audio messages, and the people are loving that, because it is that personal touch. I've started doing video messages as well now, and some of them are rubbish and I make mistakes and so it's just that authentic side. So yeah.
I think I'm in security, so I'm a little bit shy on. Well, not shy on camera, but shy on leaving traces of me that are not approved, reviewed, and it's security. It's security. We're all paranoid, but I think it's important, and I think it gives back the feeling that we're all working towards a goal. We're all human. But actually, that's interesting. How did the content creation, the community get together? How did you see the shift? And maybe the other question that I have is, has COVID helped or put a stop to that? What do you think has had the role?
So the whole pandemic situation didn't help, then did help, then didn't help, then
it's like the lockdown.
Yes, exactly. So let me explain. So when it all happened and places started getting locked down, everyone went online. So I think there was too much content out there. Yeah, it was very, very spammy. People were kind of Zoom called out, live streamed out. And so at the beginning, in the first couple of weeks, it did really well. But then people started getting quite tired. And I think about a month in, everyone just didn't want that anymore. They wanted a break and detox from just always being in front of the screen. So therefore, I noticed a dip. But then also what I noticed is a lot of these communities and companies that went online didn't continue it, as in it's hard work. It's hard work to do podcasts. It's hard work to do live streams. It's hard work to do videos,
Yeah,
blog
we know a
posts,
little bit
etc.
about it.
Exactly right. So
It's
I noticed
consistency, and consistency.
consistency. Exactly. Editing is hard.
Oh God,
And being in front of video is hard. It's all quite hard, but what I believe worth it. So what I noticed maybe, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months in, lots of places started dropping off, stopped doing it. Stopped doing like weekly stuff, daily stuff, and so on. So therefore, when people felt that they were isolated again, that they wanted more of it, they craved more of it, but then there were less
active
opportunities of it. Yeah, exactly. So the people who were consistent, like you said, who persevered and treated it like a marathon, not a sprint, then they really grew. So at the end of last year, I think from September time, I really started growing. I'm almost at 18,000 subs on YouTube.
Wow.
I've got 2,000 on GitHub, 14 sponsors on GitHub, which is great. What else? Yeah, Twitter's, I think, is almost 6,000. Just everything has just really, really grown. And because of that, I've been able to kind of document and create more content. So I'm only putting out like a fraction of the content I have. I think I have videos on YouTube all unlisted, just waiting. If I need to take a break, I can just kind of, post them.
Yeah,
and
you
then,
can disappear in an island and then just share your content, and Eddie's still out there. It's like in an island.
Exactly. And then to answer the second part of your question, which I've now forgotten what it was. I did remember a second ago.
So the first one was the community, and no, the first one was COVID, if it helped or if it didn't help.
Yes.
And then it's more or less in between the kind of content generation and the kind of things and how people like to consume. So it's more video, it's more audio, it's more. How did you find the perfect formula for the community? Because it literally, I saw it exploding all of a sudden, one day to another, it kind of clicked. And I literally saw it and I say, that's great. So what was that magic formula? How did you find that right balance?
I don't think I've got the perfect balance yet. I'm still working on it, but I feel that every time I do something, I am making improvements and getting feedback from the community. That's the great thing about having Discord. People feedback. So I really, really encourage that. And I want people to feedback ideas. Some of the ideas we don't, some of the ideas are for later, some of the ideas we won't do for whatever reason. And in December, I was really busy with a couple of clients and like way over busy, as in it's not what I had planned to do, but because of their schedule and not giving me the information in time, the December was just ridiculous. Day and night and weekend. Like it shouldn't have been like that. It was unhealthy. But what I noticed, the positive from that was I had to say to my community, I'm so busy. I'm behind in your GitHub notifications. I'm behind in all your social tags. And I can't join the conversation on Discord because Discord was getting so busy. But so many people stepped up. So actually that worked in my favor. People stepped up in the community to help other people in the community. And that's when we got our slogan, like collaboration first, code second. And people realized helping other people is more beneficial than just writing an extra PR. And yeah, it really, really exploded from them. So I got a few more mods. They didn't ask. I said, you're helping so many people. I trust you. You have the same ethics as me. You want to be inclusive, make you mods. And then they started encouraging more people. And the other thing we encourage when people join our community is, because a lot of people join and they say, hey, I want a mentor. Anyone want to mentor me? And we go, we know the perfect mentor for you. And they go, oh, who? You. And then they go like, kind of what? It's like everyone here is learning from each other. So everyone here is a mentor and everyone here is a mentee, no matter where you're at in your career. And it takes time for people to realize that if they're a month into their career, they can still help someone who's only just starting. But when they realize that, they can learn so much by teaching. It's a different type of communication. And, when we're always communicating, even if I'm a full stack, DevOps, whatever, security coder, I'm only coding probably 25% of the time. The rest of the time I'm trying to
talking.
Like, let's take a specific example. You go on GitHub and you want to add a feature, fix a bug, whatever it is. What's the first thing we do? We raise an issue, right? We're starting the conversation. There's no code involved. We're starting the conversation. Here's a bug. I've done this. I found this. The next thing you do is you do a bit of coding. Then you raise a pull request, which is starting the conversation of the changes. So it's the conversation before the changes and it's conversation after the changes, and you converse back and forth, and then it gets merged in. So it's majority of the time it's conversation.
No, I love that. I love that because it's such an important thing, because I think it applies to everything. It applies to open source even more because the project is distributed and it is really democratic. And I saw that even on the security community. So we have OWASP, that is effectively the open source community for software and anything open source for security. And sometimes it gets overly emotional. So how do you handle, for example, the emotional level? Because a lot of people get attached to issue and PR.
They do. And they do. And I used to as well. Yes, you're absolutely right. And I used to as well. And I think the way we've solved that is, if there's any good conversation on Discord or someone wants to, ask a question that we see come up over and over again, we ask them to start a discussion on GitHub, or we ask them, if they come up with an idea, we ask them to raise an issue. And I found by them raising more issues and more pull requests that they don't get attached to one. I think it's when if you raise one issue a month or one pull request a year, you're really attached to that because it's the only thing you've done.
Created.
Yeah, exactly. But if you've raised 10 this week, because they've all been quite small.
Smaller changes and small improvement rather than big blocks of work.
Exactly. And that's important for multiple reasons. One, you don't get attached to stuff because there's just so many things. And two, it's more likely to get commented on. I find a pull request with like 100 lines of code changes is probably going to get like one comment. But a pull request with 5 lines change is probably going to get 10 comments because people can really understand it, analyze what's going on. So a lot of the time at the beginning, we ask people if they do a big pull request to break it up. And then another example we get is people say, hey, I want to do this feature, or I want to do this. You're missing a contributors file. I'm going to write it. I'll get back to you in 2-3 weeks or a month, and I'll come back with a whole page. And I'm like, whoa,
that's so much.
That's just wrong for so many reasons. I said, at the moment, if we haven't got this file and haven't got one line in it, then we've got nothing at the moment. There's no value added. So if you can, today or tomorrow, raise a pull request with the file and with one line, just one line, you've added value already in 2 reasons. One, because there's that one line that's helping people. And 2, now there's a file for other people to contribute to, because some people don't like to contribute if there's no file there. They get a bit nervous about the naming convention and creating a file. So by having that, it just opens the door for everybody else to get involved. And then by the end of the week, you've got 20 people who've all contributed one line, and it's just an amazing file. And so people, when they realize that, I think they get less attached and they realize it's a community effort.
But then I love it, and I love the idea because small incremental change are perfect and it's super easy to triage and evaluate, even from a security perspective. But from an architect perspective, the architect inside me is just dying a little bit because, I don't know, small incremental changes always scared architects and scared me because you can't evaluate where you're going as a whole. And as security people, you can't do threat modeling, or you can't really look at the whole picture on how that small incremental change actually change a system. So I love it and I hate it, but I think where I found the right balance to interact with security people is, have like monthly planning session when you say from an architectural perspective where you see the direction of the application going, like logically, and then security people kind of digest it and threat scenarios it, and then you can do small incremental change, and those you can kind of small you can do unit tests or do small security tests over and over and over. I think that's what really worked in the past.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's good to have a balance. You need to have a bigger picture overview, because you can't just take, like, imagine like you're walking in the park. You can't just look at the step in front of you because you don't know if you're going in the right direction.
Where you're going.
Yes, you need to look where you're going and have a goal to get there, but you need to take those small steps to get there. So I think you're right. You need to have 2 separate conversations. You have the daily conversation of what we're going to kind of achieve today, what we're going to do today that adds value. But then, once a week, once a month, you've got to have the view of where are we going to go over the next month. You're not going to take it all in one go to do it all in one go, but you need to have that perspective. And I think that's where, architects get involved, because you want them to kind of check in and they've got a different point of view, because sometimes when you're down in the trenches, you can have your blinkers on and you might lose sight of what's coming up. That's why it's really good to absolutely have that check-in.
There are two pace, and both of them are right. And I see this conversation happening all the time where people say, oh, waterfall is such a crazy thing to do and agile is the way to go, or small incremental change. I had like tons of fights within small incremental change, and I was complaining because like, okay, you put a line, but what does it change in the bigger thing? It's like, where you going? Give me the direction of like, maybe I'm changing the authentication system and then I'm doing it incremental every day. And I can give you an opinion on that. But if you give me like, I do a printf or I do like a change in this library, my answer usually is, okay, so what? What am I going to do? Right?
Yeah, I think the different points of view is really, really important. I mean, one line can make a big difference, and 10 lines also might not make a big difference. Yeah. It depends on what it is. But you're right that you've got to have those different points of view, and that's where a diverse team, I think, is really important. Because if you put 10 security people together or 10 developers together, you're not going to end up with a good result. Because
no, they're only going to kill each other.
Well, that as well. But in addition to that, they're going to look at it from the same point of view. So Correct. If you have 10 people all looking at their feet, all taking a step in the same direction or different directions, it's not going to work. And if you have
probably they go in circles.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you have 10 people on the finish line kind of waving, but no one's doing the walking, then no one's going to get there as well at the same time. So you've got to have both. You've got to have, someone giving direction, someone doing the incremental work. And I think, more and more places are realizing that's why open source is so good, because you get the different perspectives, you get the different points of view.
Hey, Francesco here. A very quick message from our sponsor, and then we return back.
This podcast is brought to you by the generosity of NSC42 Ltd, your cybersecurity partner. Cybersecurity is complex and different for every organization, and you need the best tailored service to make sure your customers' data is safe and sound, so you can focus on what's important, focusing on your clients and bringing the best and safest experience. NSC42 Ltd can help you during your cloud transformation, cybersecurity assessment for your compliance checklist on-premise and on the cloud. Want to know more? Visit www.nsc42.co.uk to get your free quote.
To give you an example, I don't know much about UX or UI, but when sometimes I do something and I'm really proud of it, I'm like, you know what? Finally, I'm really proud of that. And I'll forget the UX person on my team and just say, hey, I've done this. What do you think? They go, yeah, it's good, but this and this. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even notice that. Like I didn't even think of that. Like it's crazy. And it's so obvious when they point it out.
I think it develops empathy.
Yes.
Because you are, it's so easy. And I have to admit that I'll tell you a story. So I used to be really, I come from coding. So I come like really from low end, like assembly and C, and I evolve in different things. And I'll tell you about the project of like breaking CPUs and using that as a semaphore for memory allocation. It was my early days. So, using CPU register as a semaphore. Never do it anymore. People that program in Python or Go probably don't know about this stuff anymore. I feel old.
No, not at all. People who do Node, Java, they probably don't know that. You've got to be really low level to do those sorts of things.
Yeah. And but then you kind of lose touch with the code, and you lose touch in the perception, and you can't even relate anymore. And I did kind of the full journey back, and now I'm back into like really low level coding, architecting, and like really from a coding perspective. And I started doing UX, a lot of UX and UI and front end. So I start developing an enormous empathy. Like I send stuff to my UX guys like, this is really cool, you should follow this guy. But you start developing the empathy, and you start understanding how much effort goes in something, and you start appreciating it.
Absolutely. I think that's so important, because in my teams, my open source teams or my client teams or whatever it is, I do say you cannot use the word, can you just do this for me? Because you're belittling someone else's work. If it was just and it was easy, you'll be doing it yourself. The whole point is it's hard and someone else is an expert in it, and that's why you're asking them to do it. So you're right. You need that empathy for, other people in your team. And I think people don't realize that until they're on the flip side. Like it's why I don't like when people say, can I ask you a quick question? It's like, the question may be quick, but the answer necessarily isn't. And that's why you have to ask it, because you don't know the answer.
Yeah.
And so you can ask a question, but you can't ask a quick question. And then people find that a bit weird. But I think people are slowly getting to realize that,
time is precious.
It is precious. That's no matter how much money or how great or amazing you are, or famous you get, whatever it is, there's one thing you can never get back.
You have only 20 bloody hours, 24 hours if you like, and you don't sleep a day, or 18 practical hours if you sleep very little a day, and you have to cram so much into it.
It's true.
And I think one thing that maybe you realize, the more busy you are, so certain people see you as busy, and it's like, you don't have time for me. It's like, no, I have time. And I allocate time, but it's like I'm really precious and gatekeeping and guarding my time, because it's really precious. And you're the same. And like, busy people understand and appreciate the value of time. A lot of other people don't.
That's very true. And that's one thing that I have to try and work with the community with, is when people DM me and say, hey, look, I've got a private question. Can I ask you? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And they say, how do I get into open source? It's like, how is that a private question? That's not a private question. Please ask it publicly for two reasons. One, so I can scale, so other people can kind of, I don't have the same conversation 100 times, but also so other people can learn from it and other people can give you their opinion and feedback. I really want to start the conversation, but I don't have all the answers. You need other people's opinions. And then they do message publicly, and then they realize the benefit, and then they help other people. They see other people's points of views and so forth. So we actually took
that approach and extended on Twitter, because we have the Mentoring Monday, or actually the Cyber Mentoring Monday hashtag that we launched with Tanya, and we saw a lot of interaction and benefit out of that. It's not as we have hashtag AskInfoSec and hashtag Cyber Mentoring Monday. So either if you search a mentor, if you will have a specific question on thing. But I love the fact that people come and ask things to you, because maybe they feel comfortable and it's not a simple answer.
Yeah, and everyone's situation is different, and that's why I think other people, if they can give their opinion, they might have a closer situation to you, for example. So yeah, I think time is really, really precious, and a lot of people don't respect that. Like some people, I think people in open source who are active in open source respect it more and more, because they realize the benefit of giving you context, and so the conversation can happen more efficiently. Rather, when someone's not involved in open source, they might say, Eddie, following our conversation last week, I think we should do this. It's like, what conversation? I've had 1,000 conversations since then. I have no idea what you're talking about. The conversation you probably started on Twitter. Now you're messaging me on LinkedIn, and you have a different name, a different profile picture. Can't put the two people together. So whereas open source people, would kind of quote and say, Eddie, you put this, I agree or I disagree or whatever it is. And you're like, right, that's what I said. I remember saying that. Okay, I remember the story.
Context.
And you can, exact context is so important. And people don't realize that. And that's quite hard. But the community really helped people improve on that. And
democracy.
And
then, I like the democracy of the community, and that everybody can keep themselves in check and on a same level. And if you are being like outside of the boundary line of what's proper, other people will tell you off, and
exactly
how you scale as well. So I love that.
Exactly.
I love the community that you built.
That's why it's good to foster a good community. So people sometimes let their communities run whatever they want, like a wild, wild west. And then it ends up being quite toxic. And I promote the people who are positive and, have the same kind of same goals as me, as in an inclusive community, yet the ones who aren't necessarily bad, because obviously we would ban them, kick them, but they don't promote the same. They're just kind of there for themselves. Then they get less attention from me. And I think people start to realize that. And I don't, take screenshots and share it on socials, because people sometimes say to me, oh, why are you always taking their stuff and taking screenshots and sharing it on socials and tagging them? Why aren't you doing mine? Well, if you notice, you always say, hey guys, and the bot reminds you and you ignore it. You don't update it. So why am I going to promote that? Whatever you said after that might be good and useful, but you've ruined that because you didn't make an effort. And people, it takes time for people to realize that. Some people realize it really quickly, and some people, don't.
Well, I like the fact of walking the talk and talking the walk, and however this is the sentence or the say. I always get it wrong. Walk the
yeah,
walk and talk the talk. It
yeah.
should be something like that.
Other way around. Some
Whatever.
people just talk the talk, but yeah, then you also got to walk the walk.
But I like the fact that you put things in practice, and sometimes everybody, even I speak a lot about diversity and inclusion, but only if you actually do things and if you show the difference. Like we, for example, with the Cloud Security Alliance, we managed to have more women leading the conversation than men. It's the first time we actually had that.
Awesome.
And it took 5 years to make that happen, and an enormous amount of work, but only if you put the work, and as you did the bot, and you promote like positive reinforcement, is great, because only in that way you actually change the perception.
And it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. But the problem is not many people are doing it because it is hard. But the benefit in the future, I think, is so important. When people say to me, oh, I don't care, about diversity or inclusion, it's fine. And I'm like, it's great that you're in a privileged position, and
but it's a snowball effect, because if you do it and other people do it and then you reinforce it, it's like you start questioning, maybe if I don't do it, I'm gonna be bad. Because if everybody ignore it, then it becomes the norm. But if at least 10% do it, you start, at least that thing comes into your mind and you start questioning.
And I've seen people convert. So for example, as I was just saying, this person was saying, I'm in a privileged position, I don't care about diversity or inclusion. And I'm saying, but you have a mum, you might have a sister, one day you might have a daughter. Don't you want them to have what you have? Oh, of course I do. But you're not. If you're not inclusive and you're not encouraging diversity, and they go, I never thought of it that way. They were thinking just of themselves, not realizing that there will be other people that they love or admire or is important to them might not have that. And then they've kind of actually become advocates themselves. So I do try and, have that conversation and communication with people. And I'm always learning. And some people do feedback tips and advice to me. So I'm always getting better at doing this. I try and find a balance between, pushing back and sometimes saying, okay, this person, they're not converted. I don't want to push them too far because then they'll start being difficult. I'm just going to let them, and they usually just phase out, and they usually just either get on board or they just kind of slow quietly disappear. Whereas I find if you push someone too hard,
you get the opposite reaction.
Yes, they'll try and be difficult, and they'll try and every moment they've got try and disrupt the conversation or annoy people. That's not what you want. You can ban them, but that again doesn't promote.
That's negative reinforcement.
Yeah, exactly. So I do try and convert them over slowly, and it's a slow burn. It takes time and effort. But the community, like you said before, the community really help as well. When they see other people going, this person from Asia, this person from Africa, this person is all getting on board and saying these sorts of things, they go, maybe I should think about this a bit more.
Be open-minded.
Yeah,
you start questioning your principle. And sometimes I found that depending on where you're born and how you've grown up, certain things are kind of not because you want to be against diversity, but it's like you're not grown in that kind of mindset.
Of
so
course.
sometimes it's like
TV,
you're not
movies
bad.
Don't help.
Yeah, you're not bad. It's like you just don't see that all the time, so you don't recognize that as the norm. It's when you break that status quo and when you start, pushing people to ask questions to themselves, it's where the tide is starting changing.
Exactly. And I think a lot of these people aren't necessarily against diversity inclusion, but they don't make an effort to be inclusive. So in the terminology, they're not inclusive. They don't want to push those people out, but if they don't help, they don't realize that they are probably pushing them out indirectly. So let me do a quick, we haven't got long left. So let me do a quick test on you and see. And this is, I'll be honest and admit, I am very disappointed in myself because I failed this, and I'm very disappointed in myself. This one, I was so upset that this was asked to me 5-6 years ago, and I was very upset with myself. So a father and son were in a car accident, and on the way to the hospital, the father dies. And as the son goes into the surgery room, the surgeon says, I can't operate on my son. Who is the surgeon? Don't think about it, just say.
The mother.
Nice. A lot of people, including myself, say, maybe the son had two dads. And I'm thinking, I'm being really I don't know, positive.
But how about the mother? The mother has a son as well.
Exactly. And But for me, in English, right, we don't have masculine and feminine words and so on. But growing up, the TV shows, the movies, all
surgeon equaled man.
Yes, it's the only word I think in the English language that I have for almost of my life, not now, but before, associated that had a gender. And I don't know why, but I think because after 20 years of it just being, rammed down my throat. Yeah, it's crazy. And I remember at school when they used to tell like little stories, like in primary school, the surgeon was always a man. And so it's just hearing, and that really
stereotype.
Yeah, that really bugs me. And I was so upset that I didn't just say.
But it's like bias. It's like having that bias burned in, and I think it's being kind to yourself and not just putting yourself down, by recognizing that, those common bias. It's like, I hate religious war against bias because everybody's fucking biased. So just admit it and getting better 1% a day, 1% of the time, and just being normal. And it's like, yeah, I have opinion. It's like I wrote a job spec and I reviewed it, and it's like, a woman will never apply to this job spec. It's like it's very. But if somebody calls me out on that, I'm be happy and thankful. It's like, thank you for improving and giving more chance and opportunity, because yeah, it's uncommon bias. But anyway, I just want to wrap it up. So it's a must.
Before you do,
okay,
you said something and it made me think of something I've just forgotten with my terrible memory. What did you say a moment ago? It really made me think of something which I thought was great. I can't remember.
The unconscious bias?
Just before that, what did you say? I can't remember.
Jesus, my memory is worse than yours.
but you sparked something, and I thought, oh my god, that's really good. And I wanted to say it. It's like one sentence, but I've forgotten now.
Improving 1% of the time.
Yes, that was it. Well done. So
it's actually not mine. It's a quote from Atomic Habit, and it's how you compound the effect of change. And it was back in the day when the cycling team of the UK was actually super terrible, and they had a guy. And this guy started, rubbing alcohol on the wheel, starting checking, like even the cleanness of the room or the paint there are small micro changes, and led to a massive thing that it was them winning, like breaking 9 records in the London Olympics. Wow. It's like the team that was last became the most powerful team, and that just 1% every day, or 1% in a small thing. So
it's like open source, right? Little and often. It's if
people say, "I want an architect." Don't tell
yeah,
an
true.
Architect.
True. Okay, well, we'll leave that one. I'll come back to what I was going to say before. There's like, forget that one. But I treat it like brushing your teeth, in that if you brush your teeth every day, you don't worry about it, you don't panic about it, you just do it, and it makes an improvement. And if you look back in a week, improvement probably is not that great. But if you look back after years, the improvement's really important. And if you miss a day because you fell asleep on the couch from the TV, it's not going to be the end of the world. But it's the little improvements that add up over time. Exactly. So what I was going to say was before I do forget. So some people come to me and say, Eddie, I want to help 10,000 people. How can I do it? I'm like, well, you probably can't. What you need to do is try and help one person every day. That's what I try and do. If I can help one person every day, I feel I've succeeded. And if I can help 1 or 2 people every day, and I can encourage them to help 1 or 2 people every day, then I know it's going to scale. I know it's going to help so many more people in the community. So that's my goal, really, just to help 1 or 2 people a day who are also going to help 1 or 2 people a day who don't just take. And
before you know, you have helped Angelina Jolie. Because you're 6 level down.
Well, she might be using Android, right? So if someone's like contributing to someone in like Android, then
possibly,
exactly.
Possibly she's using a piece of component that is open source in Android, and before you know it, you have helped Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie.
But if she's running to like, I don't know, a dress rehearsal, and she uses her Android phone, and you've helped her, like, so. Yeah, there's just, I don't know, so many things. Open source is eating the world, one pull request at a time.
I know. But we usually close with a positive message, but I think we just had a chain of positive message, closing with helping a celebrity by contributing to open source. Here you go.
Nice.
Eddie, thank you so much. It's been
Thank
always a
you.
pleasure. I want you back on the show because this is just a great spirit and you're a fantastic podcaster. So it's so easy to do podcasting with you.
Always great to geek out with you. Always so much fun.
Thank you, Eddie. Cheers.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, consider leaving us a review or sponsoring us on Patreon. It helps us bring on amazing guests and keep the podcast alive and free. Consider supporting us at www.patreon.com/CSCP and watch other episodes at www.cybercloudpodcast.com.